pushing her driving force, for all of these problems. And then basically, had he not listened to her and came down to the live, he would have been fine. It seemed like he was in a decent position beforehand. It seemed like she would get power. He was excited that he was going to be king, but her power hungry.
Did I say that? Do we know anything about her past, either developmental or psychiatric issues? This all due to those three witches?
You know, he's not like just you know, things like tell me about it. Encounter with witches. Right. Or witch at all.
Yeah, that's a big deal because in the original story, there are no witches. Right, and I brought this up before, not necessarily pertaining to Shakespeare, but when there is a movie adaptation and it differs from the book, there is a reason why the writer producer did what they did. Right, and if you're looking at what is this movie really about, you're providing anything like description or discussion. Noting those differences is very meaningful. I mean, it works the other way too. I mean, big delete scenes, especially when those delete scenes change the narrative. You better focus. So in the original, they were no witches. But Shakespeare believes that. So that's something to focus on. And certainly when we look at what happens, when we look to formulate either the behavior of Lady Macbeth or the general or future king himself, maybe a precipitant of that is what takes place on that. Well, they're coming back from battle and he takes their wishes. But whatever happens, he indicates it to Lady Macbeth, and then we observe Lady Macbeth. What else do we have here?
That happens every day. As much as we.
So I think the story very well, but I watched the Patrick Stewart version and like at the time of where they're having the dinner and he sees the ghost, Lady Macbeth is there and she like, I felt like she alluded to like the fact like she was like, oh, we had like this type of thing happened before. So I wasn't sure if that was, if she was alluding to the three witches thing. Or if this was like, oh, even previously he has his history, he sees things.
Okay, and it sounds like she died.
The line immediately after that by Macbeth himself is that he actually identifies whatever's going on as a consequence of underlying medical condition. Right, he tells us, yes, it's either strange infirmity. So he's speaking delirium quite honestly. So it's recurrent. I don't know if it's called a picture. But it's due to an underlying medical condition. Now, in both cases, obviously, these two murderers could be one. Right? But if we can take that verbatim, it actually fits a more medically consistent narrative. If this is happening before, if this particular person, if that is susceptible to episodes of delirium, I wonder what predisposing factor contributes to it. And it could have something to do with war. I don't know if it's post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't know if it was brain injury. But it may not take much for him to become psychopathic. And maybe that's what made it that is communicating with us. Remember the predisposing element. Other observations, if you want to continue to focus on leading effect.
Your sleepwalking things and obsessive hand washing. Like she's seeing like the blood on her hands, and she's like, it wasn't clear to me whether she was during the blood on her hands thing was part of her sleepwalking episode, but she's definitely like obsessing about the blood and compulsively washing her hands.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think this scene is one of the more intimate of all Florida history. And it's likely due to delirium and probably less due to sleepwalking. And the reason why it's probably safe to say that is because it just fits with the teenage so well, not that Shakespeare would do that. But when in doubt, as a clinician, you always have to investigate the organic pathology. And if it's in a gray area, you treat the condition as if it is the result of an underlying medical condition until proven otherwise. So if we're 50-50 on this, well, it could be delirium, or it could be sleepwalking, that's the mental illness, right? That's the REM sleep arousal disorder, sleepwalking disorder. 50-50, the fact is that any board certified psychiatrist would say that it's delirium until proven otherwise, right? So you have to go in that direction. The other thing too, remember, of all people, there is a physician there that observes this. And the physician actually makes a comment that there is agitation, which I guess could occur during sleepwalking. Maybe REM sleep behavior disorder where you can actually see agitation. But agitation often occurs in the he refers to it as an agitated slumber. And then if you look at the physician's words even more closely, boy, does it really shape up as an episode of delirium. We talk about how it's transient in nature, that her eyes are closed, but her level of alertness is different. Or some her eyes remain open, but her level of alertness is different. And then the spot is likely a product of visual hallucination. Perceptual disturbances are part of cognitive deficits that define the disease. All of this is shared with her husband, and I know alcohol plays a role in this story. I don't know if it's going to be that easy to find the underlying cause because with Beth himself, everyone gets to see Bankwell, but in the scene immediately following, he actually has perceptual disturbances of daggers floating. So we have two people in this tale, both suffering from perceptual disturbances likely due to delirium. So you wonder not only searching for that underlying cause, but there's a common cause. Yeah, yeah, I don't think that part's so easy. Again, I know that the morning after, at least the morning after the banquet, a porter answers the door intoxicated and makes a comment about how much alcohol was ingested prior. So that alcohol is definitely playing a role in the story, and it might be the alcohol intoxication. Who knows how they made alcohol back then? It's certainly the early part of our country's history. It was distilled with lead. So there's a lot to investigate here. But in that investigation, again, iHeart Lady Macbeth will lead you to the differential in terms of etiologies. Now, if we're going to actually say that Lady Macbeth is right now in a tower, and you're a consultant to see her, with the absence of this history of potential alcohol use, we're kind of left with nothing. And a physical exam is not going to reveal anything. Now, of course, if it did, that's exactly where we would focus our clinical attention, treat the underlying cause. But in the absence of that, there's a stepwise approach in terms of providing an assessment for the etiology of delirium. So number one, remember your ABCs. Number one, remember your ABCs, airway, breathing, circulation. So things along the lines of hypoxemia, considering ABG, obviously pulse oximetry. And then along with breathing and circulation, standing breathing. Right, so remember your ABCs. ABG and the EKG are in iHeart Lady Macbeth. And that's how you might need to rearrange and then tier your recommendations. When the EKG comes back completely normal, and when the individual is not hypoxic, what next? The answer is remember the impact of drugs. It's number two. Impact of drugs is number two. When you've investigated potential intoxication syndromes, withdrawal states, and it's negative. What's next? Well, that third step is usually referred to as the routine screening labs, otherwise the lab time. And there are usually 8 we reckon, irrespective of H&T findings. What are those eight?
PSH, B12, RPR,
Feature.
FOA, HIV.
That's part of the investigation for drugs.
CMV.
And the, something that's the one that we use for CMV, right? Those are the routine, laboratory eval. But they come back completely normal. Step 4 are additional labs, usually including the EEG, CT or MRI, and pneumonia level. And when they come back completely normal, or in the case of the EEG, only showing diffuse background slowing, which is just the encephalopathic picture, very general, non-specific. It's everything else, right? You go to Eyebrows Lady Macbeth and basically look at what you haven't yet to cross off that list, and that's a different fund step. Questions about this Uber quick primer on delirium? Other observations about either reading Macbeth or Macbeth? Questions on any other characters, observations, anything else in the tragedy? Good. All right, well, this might be the only medical school, at least this year, for the past decade, that is gonna have a joint discussion with Macbeth and the Rocky Horror Picture Show. All right, so we're gonna switch gears. It was Rick Raff's birthday on Monday, so this is his birthday week. Happy birthday, Rick. I don't want you painted in a corner. You don't have to choose that character. You get to choose any character you want. What character caught your eye? Who you want to discuss as part of the Rocky Horror Picture Show? First of all, since we do not have a video on, how many people actually went to the theater and saw this? How many people in their past have seen Rocky Horror live? Yeah, those are a couple. That's a hand raise, right? All right, well. So as far as the fandom is concerned, anyone who has not raised their hand has not yet seen the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Just official statement. Nonetheless, where do you want to start?
Start with Brad.
Brad.
I just felt like his behavior throughout the whole experience was so inconsistent. Like, at times he was very passive, at times he was very forceful. He was like trying to normalize this bizarre experience like throughout, and almost like minimizing his concerns and like kind of just going along with it. He also seemed to have like interest troubled him, like he was like not sure what to do with, and so I just felt like throughout this whole experience he was kind of the driving force for them staying. Like he said he was fine, it was like left video at the end of it. He's like, no, it's fine. Like,
Yeah.
I can't be rude.
He's like, they're just foreigners, maybe like their party style is different.
Yeah. Anything else for that? Well, I mean, what do we know about him? He's from Stockton.
The original insisted that Jen stay in the car, but to go to the castle.
Right, she was the one who was like, no, I'm fine.
What other connecting might he have to that castle? Yeah. I mean, his mentor and friend. Certainly has the link to that castle.
And it was odd that he really wanted to see his mentor the day he got engaged, like he was insistent on going, so he was see the plan.
And he does show up.
He didn't show up.
Now, I think Fred acts surprised, but at this point, I'm not sure he would be reliable. Something to consider. And you have any other aspects? Characters.
See, remind me of Gina from like from Seinfeld where she was like she was very flirtatious with just about everybody, for she like was in bed with Frank Furter, then was right into immediately into the arms of like Rocky Horror while he's literally Brad, her fiance or husband. The fiance, fiance was still in the house. It's not like he was that far away and like immediately they're like, oh, well, okay, I guess I'm gonna start coming into this.
That whole song, she's like, I got a taste and now.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, right. But the problem is we don't know her past. We don't know if this is like, but it's just one of those things. It's like, man, that's just barely issues. She seemed like, oh, maybe like, oh no, then immediately went to like flirtatious, especially when she like held in the arms of Rocky Horror himself. And I was like, oh, that's like, what happened? What would cause all this issue? But it's just an immediate type.
Well, it's difficult too, because it makes a non-consensual sexual acts that have just around himself. And I was trying to choose not to her desire, but it's like maybe a trauma response to it, right?
Right. Yes, certainly, I think, what, Young would call the persona, is something that this particular character really strives to present to the world. But what then he would, as Young would consider the unconscious, both the personal and collective unconscious, is what is the driving force of this character throughout the film. Even made a comment that, you know, she, in Touch Me, she makes a lyric song that she's looking to the void and that can't go back. Yeah. Now, again, I don't know what predisposed to that in terms of her some experiences all the way up to the psychiatric, et cetera, or if she had been prequel, quote unquote, completely normal and she finally gets something.
But like with their relationship too, like their engagement scene, 'cause I always think it's so bizarre, like literally a cemetery getting engaged. And at times I feel like, you know, if we had like a sequel, we would see them married and acting like it never happened, kind of how I feel they would respond to it. I don't know how accurate that is. But
Very
like
nice.
just- Yeah, right. And I think maybe that was Brad's intention, but we're assuming that was intentional, of like having someone introduce her to this world and his sexual fantasy. And he's probably the only person she can do it with. Not really know.
Right. And then you get the question whether the rim was a metaphor and everything was just an allusion to what Jack says, I'm sorry, Brad was thinking. Not tired at all.
Trying to find escape from this marriage and be himself.
Or not bring her in, yeah. Yep. So let's talk about Jack's altar then, if that is the case.
And there's several things I can unpack. Just one of them that comes right away is when he just killed the
Eddie.
Eddie. No, Eddie was the
Right.
It was the original Rocky that he made, that heaviest one that came with the murder. He just came in.
That's Eddie.
Is that
That's Eddie.
Oh, that was it. So the way he killed Eddie was just like, he was just upset and they just took a pickaxe and just, I'm going to kill him. And then just at the end, when people were horrified, it's like, oh yeah, you know, I did him a mercy or something there. It's like, I don't know if it was more of like something more of a sociopath or antisocial, just because of the complete disregard for human life. Just first thing he thought of when he was upset, I'm going to murder this person, and then proceeded to murder the person. And
That's very sexual. The big, lack of respect, different people.
yes, him just going into Janice and just like, all right, and then also with Brad as well. It's like he's completely disregarding social norms and everything, but it's also like, did he have this before he was 18 years old? Like, was he expressing these types of behaviors beforehand? And now he's evolved to like that's what he's doing now.
And Columbia is as well too, like you just make people and chew them up, right? Pick them up and see them.
So at the very least, we do start with this definition, antisocial personality disorder. And we need to threefold, to ensure that for the age of 15, Dr. Frankenfurter, not yet a doctor, but or pregnant, actually demonstrates aspects of conduct disorder, which they. That said, the irony here is the murder that, and again, it's a murderer, it's a serial rapist. So anyway, along those lines, even if not evident, even if there's a lack of evidence of conduct prior to the age of 15, we might be looking at the term of psychopathy. That's right. So that's something to consider. Psychopathy, again, can be used in situations in which the individual demonstrates antisocial personality disorder, but we can't call it disorder because of the lack of conduct or the absence of conduct prior to the age of 15. We just substitute the diagnosis, the illness, for the clinical term psychopathy. The other way in which we hear psychopathy used in clinical circles very often is that the individual does in fact have established antisocial personality, but there are additional behaviors that warrant independent clinical attention, like cannibalism, that allow us to use both terms. So there's an illness, and then there's that clinical term describing a more severe value of it.
This is one of those things that I don't want to, this came from a people questions, that somebody's like really bad antisocial disorder. It's like, there's a certain point where one of the answers was jail. That's the best thing for some of these. We keep qualified because not only did he murder somebody, he's resorted to cannibalism and sexual assault and rape. I understand we try to help all of our patients in doing anything, but somebody who's that, like, would that be like one of those things like, it's not really as, I mean, we're gonna try our best, but it seems like, would that be one of those like telltale answers? Like, yeah, prison seems like the best option for this individual.
Yeah, so, I think it's a little tricky because, because it's coming from the shelf exam. And sometimes, law enforcement and the criminal justice system has a what we call a treatment plan that is simply not consistent with the field of medicine. So if this individual came to me, if Dr. Frankfurter came to me with the chief complaint of blank, I'm going to put together a treatment plan. That doesn't mean that during our initial interview, that I might get a knock on the door by law enforcement, who then take my patient away and handcuffs. So, you know, these two situations and the way these two different perspectives may be mutually exclusive. That is, both can actually occur at the same time. So it's tricky on how the wording of that case vignette on the shelf exam, it's tricky in terms of how you're going to read into it. So the answer is yes. I mean, jail could be the only option.
The truth of it is not really like efficacious treatment for international the different things we know works very well at being food.
That's the question. That's my like biggest thing. Like, we have our laws. We want to do everything we can to help individuals, but when they've gone so religiously and done all these horrific things, it's like, in our legal system, you're not going to see the light of day whatsoever. And then especially with the treatment not being super well for these individuals. The question I have to ask, this is an extreme case. This is somebody who's gone through, it's not, and every person that has antisocial will do what Dr. Frankfurt has done. But at that point, it's like, where is there like a line? You're like, you try everything you can, but there's really, this is the type of individual that no matter what we do, they have to be put, not trying to say anything horrible, but like put them in a hole like that. That's the best option for society as a whole, is that we keep these individuals away from making one else other way than do more harm.
And you know, and there is some middle ground. I mean, in New Jersey, there is a law called parole, named after a little girl, last name, who was murdered by someone who was found to be mentally infected. That is, not guilty by reasons of insanity. So this individual avoided jail. However, it was contingent upon their being compliant with the treatment plan set forth by their practicing psychiatrist. And if they weren't, if they were in violation of the treatment plan, if they were non-compliant, they would be persecuted. Right, so there's a middle ground too. And you know, if you sign off as being the care provider of such an individual, you're taking responsibility to have their illness under control along the safety for the community standard. And again, that some providers are going to be more helpful. And of course, at levels of care like an acute partial hospital, it's a little bit easier than these monthly visits where you're going to see them as an outpatient. So you have to think of level of care as well. But that level of care, an example here is a partial hospital. is one that is certainly less restrictive than the first one. So, I think that talking from the medicine side, it's always great to advocate for that care until you realize that it's insufficient. Other observations? Oh, by the way, how about if I, just a little bit of purple here, let's forget criminal justice for a second. You're a practicing psychiatrist. And I mentioned to you that Dr. Frankenberg comes to you and she's been playing blind. You uncover everything that the plot discloses to you. And an hour later, 90 minutes later, you discharge the patient and say no follow-up needed. Why?
I was gonna say, if he was having.
Yeah, I can say like you think there's something.
Well, I mean,
But there's no current or future risk, you need to say that people treating on ethically. And psychologists, like if someone has an emergency in the past, they can't do anything to have to pick up, okay.
well, I mean, the incident with Eddie took place 48 hours ago. Difficulty sleeping.
One of those things that. There's certain things like if someone's actively saying, hey, they've done something, I know there's certain crimes, if you know they're going to leave, they're going to kill somebody, you can't actively let them do it.
These are going to.
Yeah,
He's already
but
done it.
that's the question.
Yeah.
It's all recent.
Doesn't matter, he's already done it, yeah. Unless he says, and I'm gonna leave here and go kill X, Y, Z person.
Yeah, again, I'm not saying that the police are. Right, I'm not saying there's not a man. And that could be going on, but as far as your clinical decision making, you decide that there's nothing further to do, choice C, reassure patient. And after all you know about this character.
If I were to you, yeah.
It is a scenario in which this works, and by the way, it is a scenario that's presented. Significantly so. In this movie, and more than once. If you pay attention, you know something about this character that allows you as a practicing clinician to say, this is normal and this is really. Well, here's my case. No, it's good, that's gonna guess that. So, this, again, as the patient comes in and they're triaged. You're with triage, so you get to see them in variety. What are some questions you have for them? So you're in character now, so ask away.
Just one thing I was just thinking about, did they need an alien in front of that? That's
Real life.
That's really, I was thinking that, like, that's the only thing that made sense, I was like, he's an alien and to the, if this is
Completely normal.
normal to them, it's like,
And
why
It
would?
wasn't because they arrested him, didn't they say they're gonna kill him because it wasn't a to save someone, so. The
Yeah.
other aliens thought it was
Yeah.
normal.
That part is.
Just so we're clear, there are no aliens on the show.
Probably.
I had to write a bad one.
Yeah, I'm no longer allowed to write questions for the show. That is true. You know, they are from a different culture, and this may be 100% culturally sanctioned, however, that's a good thing. We do have others from that culture that are telling us, and I guess we would have had that information provided to us that back in transsexual Transylvania, this is not okay. So ultimately, this scenario is going to be, you know, I want to be culturally sensitive, and I'm going to discharge the patient back to home. And then we're going to get a phone call from the birthday boy and say, nope, and we're going to bring the patient right back into the room and then reevaluate. What else?
This is another scenario, this is where it's getting, I know we have no duty, duty to warn for somebody for the future, but if someone's going to kill somebody. And that we would have to do one, but if we're talking about cultural sensitivity, where things might be normal, what if in that where he's from, and like, oh yeah, if we're upset at someone, we can kill them, that's perfectly fine for us to go ahead and do so.
Right.
In that situation, I know this is a whole hypothetical situation with involving aliens. Where would that fall under in our duty to warn?
You said the US Constitution, look at the table.
I think even from psychoeducation, I opened the state laws and the culture that is.
That's the only way I thought was like, okay, this could be potentially.
By the way, just to backtrack just a little bit, we're actually talking about psychopathy, talking about something great. This all started with, Dr. Frankenfurter's interaction with Eddie. Eddie actually does fit even better so. The definition of antisocial personality, because in the song, we know that, he was a rotten kid. He was a no good kid, right?
From childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's the street evidence of conduct in that song. That is, at least the collateral told to us by Dr. Scott. Nephew, Dr. Scott in his uncle. So that's interesting because the two do interact. And of all the people, it's Eddie that actually has the established diagnosis. It's Frankenfurter we suspect. You don't have that same information.
Maybe that's why he's even saying it's mercy killing. Maybe he's.
And State Community Standards.
Yeah.
Read the vignette, it's like genocide analysis, everyone.
Other observations here?
Rocky's reaction, to like underwriting for that, make it seem kind of like stop. He's like kind of realizing he has like love for even though their relationship's like that.
What's that about?
Well, it's strange because that's his attachment relationship, but it's his first relationship, even though it was not great. Like his attachment is formed to Dr. Frankfurt that he were his parent.
Just like the monster effect.
Yes.
It's different attachment. How much mistreated, how much your parents have told on Rocky certainly wasn't, but the monster telling, being told that he's hideous. Just looking for attention, affection from, in this case, a criminal figure, right? And a constant rejection. Now, I think of Rocky, unlike Rocky Horror, Victor Frankenstein does not have sex with his creation.
I thought it was interesting Columbia's reaction when I was threatening Frankenfurter because she had just like basically written him off. And then she was really upset when he got on and she was looking for self-kill the result.
Yeah.
Also very attachment based, I'm guessing, but it was not what I was expecting, you know. She literally died. This is what she said she hates.
Yeah. Again, that there might be an element of Stockholm
Yeah.
syndrome
There.
there too. Yeah.
It's just like a defense mechanism, like reactive formation, where she's like, I hate him one moment, and then when something else is wrong, and she's like, that's her defense mechanism, variant some more, is that considered one of the immature defense mechanisms, to where she's like, oh, I hate him, you know, blah, 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 then you throw in something that's like, he's like,
I mean, unfortunately, they're very like one people relationships too, right? To like defend what we good, being funny.
So maybe this whole time she actually does love him, but reaction formation allows her to express that in its 180-degree opposite, and therefore socially appropriate form, so that it gets through the superego's reality principle. Good.
also there's the sentence that we have a fire.
Yes. And so specific phobia, 4 subtypes. I don't know if we has this on the shelf, but look at the 4 subtypes. Now remember, prior to whatever, maybe it was 2013, maybe even these later, for every object, for every phobic object, there was an illness, right? Just a decade, 13, you know, I mean, it was on like that. There are literally hundreds. The APA simplified things for us, then there's only 4, right? So there's 4 groups. What are those 4? You should know them. Blood injection injury. Does not appear what's going on. Animal, again, no. Situational. And then environmental, which maybe more, we think more likely, things like that, but then it's possible, maybe. And of course, human behavior defies artificial categorization. So there's always, and that's the fifth and final category. But if you have to remember the actual acronym's base, BASC, blood injection injury animal, situational, and those are the four categories of specific.
What's the distinction? I'm not sure I understand the distinction between situational and environmental.
Uh,
Can you give some examples?
Yeah, situational would be open spaces. Right? Public speaking, specific situations, school. Environmental is not necessarily your immediate environment, really it's nature.
Would heights be environmental?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
I think it's a situation.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a situation. I think environmental, think more, maybe it should be,
Earthquakes, maybe, could be like.
earthquakes, it's more natural.
Okay.
Yeah, which is why fire.
Natural and.
Yeah. It's a bit of a misnomer. All right, other observations here. It's interesting that you picked it up, so, what was the Freudian spin on specific phobias?
Not the Darwinism thing. People to avoid certain things or, code, like predisposed to be afraid of things like definition of society.
Yeah, and that could be Darwin merged with even Jung, right? We have ancestral memories. They're not part of our personal unconscious, but our collective unconscious because of the generations past that have experienced them. Now that we are great ancestors, we still have those memories. So that merges with Darwinism. Freud basically said these are latent or unconscious sexual impulses, which of course become manifest. If manifest in their pure form would be horrifically inappropriate. So stopped, effects by the superego. And the way to sneak them by the superegos, to sneak them by the goalie, is to have a defense mechanism distort them. So that you can express them, but in a way that's socially appropriate, superego will sign off. So maybe he's really not very afraid of fire. And of course, if we ask, well, then what is he afraid of? I think there are some scenes in this movie that would point us in the direction. Including the rape and incest and pedophilia. He's only what, how many days old before he has sex?
6 hours.
Well, I mean, yeah, well, the other part of this, and we'll conclude with this, is that the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and not necessarily in a single character, but as a movie, depicts every single paraphilia and sexual deviancy published in the DSM. And so if you have to review the paraphilias, the Rocky Horror Picture Show after the factors, everything, there's one that is missing. And it's pretty interesting why it is missing, but it is missing. Anybody have an idea what that one is? It is. It's only one. We'll leave it there. We'll leave it there. I am out next week, so in 2 weeks, we are, 2 weeks is your last day.
Next week is your last.
Next week is your last day, so I measure that. This is actually your last week. All right, so you don't care, but I'm gonna post on Twitter an hour about that. So we'll leave it there. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, so just real quick, medical literature, and this has come up on